Okay, let's get into it. We're going to look past those dramatic covers, you know the ones, to really understand one of the biggest and maybe most misunderstood genres in all of publishing. Today, we're uncovering the hidden empire of the romance novel. Right off the bat, you've probably heard words like these thrown around. Romance novels, well, they have a reputation. A lot of people have some pretty strong opinions, even if they've never actually read one. So where does that reputation come from, and more importantly, what is it hiding? Well, to figure that out, we're going to explore what I'm calling the romance novel iceberg. We'll start at the surface with that bad rep, then dive way deeper into why millions of people really read them, the huge world of subgenres, how fans make sense of it all, and finally, the incredible publishing machine that built this whole empire. So yeah, let's just tackle this head on. Why is it that the world's most popular, most profitable literary genre gets so little respect? The criticisms you'll find are almost always the same. You know, the big three. You hear that they set you up with totally unhealthy expectations for real-life relationships, that they're somehow lesser than other books like thrillers or literary fiction, and, of course, that they're just super easy to write, that pretty much anyone could do it. This dismissal is a huge part of their public identity. But if that's the whole story, why are they so massively popular? It doesn't quite add up, right? Well, it turns out that for millions of readers, these books are offering something way deeper than a simple escape. They actually serve a real emotional and psychological purpose. According to author Jody Headland, it boils down to four key things. Readers use them as a safe way to explore relationship dynamics. They inspire hope that, hey, maybe we can overcome our own problems too. They are, let's be honest, a really fun form of entertainment. And maybe most importantly, in a world that can feel pretty cynical, they renew a belief that love is real and it's worth fighting for. Now, this is where the iceberg starts to get really big under the surface. You see, saying you read romance is kind of like saying you watch TV. It's not one thing. It's a massive, sprawling empire of different worlds, different tones, and completely different rules. Let's just look at a few. First up, you've got contemporary romance. This is the biggest slice of the pie. It's set in our world, right now, with characters and problems that feel really familiar. Then, of course, there's historical. We're talking any time before the 1950s. Think Regency dukes, Scottish Highlanders, cowboys. You get the idea. The setting and the rules of the past are a huge part of the story. And you can't forget paranormal romance. This is where you get your vampires, your werewolves, your witches, all the supernatural goodness where otherworldly problems make falling in love even more complicated. And the genre is always evolving. A perfect example is the recent explosion of romantasy. You've probably seen this term everywhere. It's become a total publishing juggernaut. But what? What exactly is it? The key to romantasy is right there in the definition. This isn't just a fantasy book that happens to have a love story on the side. It's a true hybrid. The epic quest and the central relationship are so woven together that if you try to pull one out, the whole story just completely falls apart. Okay, so with this giant universe of subgenres and tropes, how in the world do readers find their way around? Well, the fan community, in a really cool way, has developed its own sophisticated system. It's almost like a curriculum for reading romance. You see this pop up in online discussions all the time. Readers basically categorize books into beginner, intermediate, and expert levels. Beginner books are those fun, easy entry points to get you hooked. Intermediate books dig a little deeper, with more complex characters and emotional journeys. And then you have the expert level. These are intense reads, often with some really serious themes, that show just how deep and nuanced this genre can truly be. So we've seen why people read romance and how they navigate its huge world. But how did this world even get built? Now we're going from the literary genre to the full-blown industrial machine behind it all. The story of how the romance novel became a product was famously broken down in Janice Radway's 1984 book, Reading the Romance. Her whole argument was that you can't possibly understand the genre's popularity unless you understand the history of how books are actually made and sold. And that history, it happened in stages. Way back in the 1830s, new technology first turned the book into something you could mass produce. 100 years later, the paperback revolution used magazine distributors to sell cheap, single-genre books. Then, by the 1960s, publishers got smart and started targeting women with Gothic romances sold in supermarkets. But the real game changer was in the 1970s when Avon published a romance straight to paperback, created a massive bestseller, and proved a whole new data-driven market was just sitting there, waiting. And this data-driven strategy? It was absolutely perfected by one company in particular. A company that transformed the romance novel from a story into a predictable consumer product, engineered from the ground up for maximum satisfaction. This is the calculated HEA. That's industry talk for happily ever after. To give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, by 1979, that one company, Harlequin, was distributing 168 million books a year. Let that sink in. 168 million. How on earth did they do that? Well, they didn't just sell books. They built a system. The Harlequin method was genius. First, they used intense market research to find their exact audience. Second, they made the Harlequin brand the star, more important than any single author. Third, they found new ways to sell, putting books in supermarkets and creating mail-order subscriptions, literally selling books like you'd sell magazines or soap. And finally, and this is crucial, they standardized the product. They engineered a predictable formula that guaranteed readers got the emotional payoff they craved every single time, making sure they'd come back for the next one. Which brings us to a really fascinating final question. We've seen the deep emotional needs these books fulfill. We've seen the rich, complex world that fans have built around them. And we've seen the calculated industrial machine that delivers them on a massive scale. So, if the world's most popular genre is in fact this carefully engineered machine, what does that say about our collective, powerful, and apparently very, very marketable desire for a happy ending? It seems the heart wants what it wants, and a multi-billion-dollar industry was built to make sure it gets it.